Okay, so this is vlog 22. It's a little lighter in here because it's daytime and I have like all my lights on for the first time in a very long time. Yeah, except for this one here. Um, I'm not feeling that well. Haven't been feeling that well. Still struggling with screens. And just been falling asleep during the middle of the day. Disheveled because this is what life with ME is. You don't shower as often. You don't shave as often. You don't even give a shit about your physical appearance all that much because who do you have to impress anymore? Like you're not. It's really weird. It's like being your. It's like you're extracted from society, but at the same time you're still grounded in the rules that govern it. It's not like you get to like go off the grid or something. It's not like that great. That would be awesome if I this disease allowed me to just to like live off the grid, but I have to like I'm still bound by the rules of like um liberal democracy and fucking the law of value and capitalism and stuff. It sucks balls. Anyways, this vlog will be about Severe ME Day and is there a disability community, which is somewhat controversial. So what is Severe ME Awareness Day? I'm reading this off MEpedia. Severe ME Awareness Day takes place every year on August 8th. It is considered a day for remembrance of those who suffer from and have died from severe myalgic encephalomyelitis, as well as a chance to educate the public about severe ME and advocate for better treatment and research. The purpose: 25% of people with myalgic encephalomyelitis have severe or very severe ME, meaning they are almost completely housebound, permanently housebound, or bedbound. People with severe ME are frequently hidden away from the outside world, ignored, and dismissed, which is why it's very important that someone like myself or someone who doesn't have this illness to speak up on it. Some patients with severe ME are unable to see doctors because they are refused home visits and are physically unable to leave their home or room. Um, Severe ME Awareness Day was started by the 25% group in 2013. The day, August 8th, was chosen to honor Sophia Mirza, a severe ME patient who died of the disease in 2019. The ME Association marked Severe ME Awareness Day for the first time. And so I'll link that in the bio, and I'll also link Whitney Defoe's sort of tribute to I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. It's just Mae Boothby O'Neill, who also died from medical neglect. That is probably the critical point you should be pulling away from this: is that people with severe ME suffer at least on the sliding scale of the spectrum of the illness, probably the worst aspects of the neglect from the disease because they really can't do anything, and it's very difficult for them to get treatment. Sometimes they're just very treatment resistant because their body is just hostile to everything, and they're extremely sensitive to everything. Like I can take a zillion pills every day, and I don't really have much reaction to it, but they cannot. They're sensitive to a lot of medications. They're sensitive to physical touch, which has got to be very difficult. They're sensitive to almost everything, and they have a ton of comorbidities. I follow someone on Instagram, and this is a very common description, which is I felt close to death, needing to turn over in bed and hold up my head, and that's very common description of people who have that. This was they just live in darkness. They have to wear the masks or the headphones constantly. I wore my sunglasses and earplugs, but that's a lot of that's precautionary, and a lot of that is just to like decrease the downside of noise and and any sort of stimuli. And so, yeah, they lead their quality of life is probably worse than it's not. I don't think it's controversial to say at all that their quality of life is worse than people who have um, cancer or even AIDS or renal failure or something like that, something that's pretty devastating or whatever the case may be. And so that sort of leads me into the next discussion: is whether is there a disability community or not. And the reason why I'm saying this is because as someone with ME, we get the kind of the short end of the stick of everything. We get the least amount of attention, the least amount of funding, and so and we're not interesting enough to like have a social media presence, like a large social. Even the most famous person with ME, who's Whitney Defoe, right? Not that it's any sort of, I'm sure, joy for him to be the most famous person with ME. I'm sure he'd rather be the least famous person in the world and not have this illness. But gets no attention. And his father is extremely famous and, talented and whatever, and notable and has all these accomplishments. And even then, no attention, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because there's a lot of other illnesses and a lot of other people who have been able to monetize their disease and their disability. Why? Well, because they have the energy to do so. So is it really a community if you're able to do things really that we can't, even though for the most part, if you looked at me, you would say, oh, he's not sick, right? Doesn't look sick, doesn't sound sick. But I couldn't monetize this channel. I would never get to 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers, 1,000,000 followers. Now, that's also because I don't really care about making content either. But I don't have the energy to do it. I can't make wacky, zany content. There's like one guy, and his name is Vlad, who has like over 100,000 followers, but he's also like a smart guy, and he does like he does like political commentary on the Ukraine-Russian war. Again, I'll link his thing in his YouTube channel because I think I follow him in the description because he's one of the few people I know who has MECFS who has an enormous following. He's probably the only guy who has MECFS who has 100,000 plus followers on YouTube. Whereas there are people who have other illnesses and other disabilities who have millions of followers, right? Like, but by a community, we have to really. It's okay. I think it's okay in this community. I mean, to have a disability and say I don't feel like I'm part of like people. I know there's a lot of crossover and different comorbidities, but I think as MECFS being the main illness that I have, right? I think it's okay for me to say I don't feel like I have anything in common with people who have autism. I understand that we face similar challenges, but we don't. We're in different boats. I'm sorry. I'm in a different boat than someone who has spinal muscular atrophy. I'm in a different boat than someone who has diabetes. And again, people could have different comorbidities. I understand that, but I'm just speaking for myself. I'm in a different boat than someone who has fucking HIV. I'm in a different boat than someone who's blind or deaf. I'm in a different boat than someone who's missing a limb. I'm in a different boat than someone who has to use a wheelchair. I'm even in a different boat than people, obviously, who have MECFS because I can get up and walk around. Sometimes I use my cane, but most of the time I can get up and do things. I'm in a different boat. So there's even like differences within our community. But I feel more obviously closer and more integrated into the MECFS community, and also by extension the long COVID community, people who have like illnesses of the same categorization or type or whatever you want to call it, right? And so because there is a lot of overlap, right? Because there's people who usually have MECFS have autonomic issues, or they have sleep issues, or which is not a disability, but it is disabling. And they have brain fog, they have whatever MCAS, something like that, or they develop some other autoimmune condition, which is pretty common. So it's complicated because there's a lot of there's too many comorbidities that are also constitute a disability in and of itself, right? That overlay on top of another disability. But so to say that, but my problem with the disability community is that like my dad, for example, he wears hearing aids. He's also blind as a bat like me, right? He has difficulty walking because he's having balance issues and stuff like that, right? He did I say he has diabetes? I don't know. I forgot, but he has diabetes, and he's just old, which is not a disability, but it is limiting to what he can do, of course, right? And so he, in his memory is going, which is also kind of limiting. But I don't have anything in common with him. I don't even think he considers himself part of the disability community. But he clearly has disabilities. Clearly, he needs help. He literally has something called a hearing aid. Right? It's no different than when I wear glasses or I use my cane to walk. It's a walking aid. It's a mobility aid. He has a hearing aid. Same thing with these glasses. These glasses are not to look cool. These glasses are a prescription. Okay. Um. So, but he doesn't feel part of it, and why should he? Right. And that's his right, I think, to not want to be maybe associated with that, and maybe some of that is whatever what they would call internalized ableism, where he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be considered disabled." Blah blah blah. Oh. No, I think for him, I know my dad well enough where he's just like, "Oh, this is just part of getting older in life, and that's what it is," you know. But he's had diabetes for 20 years, so it's not like he's had it since he was much younger, so it's not like something that's new to him. Um, and he's been hard of hearing for a very long time. And his and so when I think about it, it's just I it's very difficult to say for sure whether community, whether we're it's yes, there's a lot of heterogeneity within that community, but does the totality of it make it a whole community if we're all sort of, especially under capitalism, maybe in a different society we would be considered a community. But under capitalism, it's very different. We're all fighting and competing over resources. As much as we may be nice or kind to each other and whatever, that's fine. But in reality, we're in direct competition with one another for resources and research and for people to pay attention to us, right? There's no fun run for just generalized disabilities, right? There really isn't. It's a fun run for Parkinson's. It's a fun run for ALS. It's a fun run for uh, I don't know, people from the war who are missing limbs or something. It's a fun run for MECFS. It's a fun run for um, cure for cancer. There's it's so why aren't there fun runs just for disability in general? Just raise it and raise a whole big fucking pot of money. Why isn't the New York Marathon just one giant fun run for people with disability? And they're all going 26 and a half miles or whatever it is. That's a lot of money, to be if they were getting sponsored per mile. So that's it's fair. I think it's a fair question, and I think it's something fair to answer. And I think it's really specific to this society as a problem, and it's better under this society than it was in other societies where they would just probably just throw us in a fucking river somewhere and drown us. But this society also wants us gone and dead and disappeared or invisible or to not cause troubles or off their disability rolls and punished even and neglected, and because there is some sort of psychosis where we remind them of the worst thing that could happen to them, which is they lose their life while they're still alive. And so that's really what I mean. I have nothing against people in other disability communities, really. I do take some exception to some people who are able to monetize it, and yet they still complain about it because it's like, oh, well, society is still unfair to us. It's like, I'm on your Instagram and you're on like vacations and shit. I was like, I have very little sympathy for that. It's where it's like, oh, we're all in the same boat. And it's like, no, we're not. If you were all in the same boat, you can share your. Why don't you share your resources then? You're not going to do that because it's not a community. Okay, you're never going to see someone from fucking the Scleroderma fucking foundation give money to the fucking MECFS foundation or vice versa. Why would they do that? Right? It's not an associative community. Right? It's a false community. It's an illusory community. Okay? That's what you should know. It's like saying everyone in fucking Italy likes each other because they're Italians. No. It was regional conflicts they had. We're an Italian community. It's like, no, they fucking all hate each other. The North and the South were in war for each other for fucking hundreds of years. you know? Anyways, that's all I really had to say. But the real main point is that today is Severe ME Day, and if you can reach out to someone, or if you can share something about severe ME, and if you can try to educate someone about the impacts of it, and yeah, that could just go not a long ways, but it can go some ways towards maybe If you can just inform one person, I think it'd be um, helpful, beneficial. Maybe we can build off that. That's all I have to say. And I just wanted to try to keep it short. Sorry that it went 15 minutes, but that's it. All right.